Hello, hello, hello. This is Tonya Duncan Ellis, author of the Sophie Washington book series. And I'm excited to host the second episode of my author interview series, Write This Today, where we'll be interviewing author Brittany J. Thurman, who is a picture book author from Louisville, Kentucky. I'm so excited to talk to her today about her new book, Fly, and about her author journey. And I'm going to invite her on. For her, and this is going to be a really fun time where we'll learn all about her gorgeous new book. Hey, Brittany, how are you doing?
Hey, Tanya. I'm good. How are you?
Fine. So happy to see you. I loved hearing your book this weekend at the Highlights Writer Conference. I wanted to listen to it again and again, and I know that kids are going to eat up the story and just love it as much as we all did. And I saw that you were talking to some kid or reading it with some preschoolers this week too, which looks so cute.
Yeah, thank you. I think it's always nerve-wracking to read your book for the first time to kids and adults. Because you never know. Just like I think everyone's reaction will be different, or everyone's, I guess, takeaway from the story might be different. So it's always nerve-wracking to read your story out loud. But the kids loved Fly. I was fascinated that they were so, I guess, in tune to Africa. They're sitting right next to a baby, and even he was pointing at Africa. So I don't know. I can't wait to really step into this author journey, officially do school visits, really meet kids face to face, because that's what our books are for.
Right. And it was just wonderful. And Africa, for those who are joining now, is the main character of her book, Fly. And I have to tell you that the beautiful writing is just as gorgeous as the illustrations. So it was just a wonderful thing, a wonderful affirming book. But as we begin, Brittany, can you tell us a little bit about yourself? Share where you're from and a little bit about how you became an author.
Yeah, so I'm Brittany. I am originally from Louisville, Kentucky. I was born here in Louisville, where I live right now, but I've kind of lived all over the place. I spent some time in London, about 4 years though, for undergrad in London, and then I moved to Pittsburgh, where I really dug into working with kids and writing for kids. So I worked at a library as a children's specialist in Pittsburgh, working, firsthand with children of a range of ages. So we had babies for story times, toddlers for story times, preschoolers, and I would go to schools and we had school-age children. So while I was reading to them, I really recognized that I could use my background as a writer, because I went to undergrad, Carnegie Mellon, for dramatic writing. I was writing plays at the time. So I really recognized that I could attempt to maneuver into children's publishing by really utilizing my background as a writer, and then working with children, merging those two experiences. I think that while I was living in Pittsburgh, reading to kids all over the city really helped me to tune in to structure and dialogue, in particular of picture books, which is why I feel that picture books are kind of my, I guess, thing. So I feel like I have more of a handle on picture books. And I try, middle grade and young adult, but picture books are really where my heart is.
And you shared at the writers conference or writers camp that we were at this weekend that you started your book as a poem. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah. So I know that you can see the cover behind me on my shelf, but I want to show you the cover of Fly.
Yeah, I love it.
So Fly started as a poem. While I was working at the Carnegie Library, I was going through a really emotional time at that particular moment, and throughout my life, I've struggled with insecurity on different levels. But at that time, it was around the same time that so Beyonce's like brown skin girl was kind of like going through my head. Just affirming, uplifting poems, songs, messages, in particular to Black kids, Black women, Black people in general. And I had a moment where I saw other people who were like me, who were Black around Pittsburgh, which is not the most inclusive place in the United States. And I wondered if they were experiencing the same things that I was. So experiencing these low levels of like insecurity that I had at the time, and then the high levels. I think sometimes it fluctuates. Sometimes you can feel very secure in your skin, and then other times you do feel like the weight of the world is on your shoulders. So I started to write a poem on my lunch break at the library, and it was a poem of affirmation for Black girls. And it was really me kind of like unleashing these feelings that I was experiencing at the time onto paper. I haven't looked at it in a while because since then, you know, from poem to manuscript, it's gone through a lot of changes. And sometimes it's hard to look at your original draft of anything because you see where you could have done like a lot better. But I believe it was called You Girl, is what it was called, YOU Girl. And it was a poem that said basically, like, do you know who you are? Similar to Dear Black Child, I believe, is the picture book, which is also a poem.
Mm-hmm.
But basically, it was saying, do you know who you are, where you come from? Do you know that your skin basically holds like all of this energy and all of this forward motion that pushes us to the next level? And so that's the origin of, yeah, Hey Black Child. Thank
you. Yeah.
That's the origin of Fly.
Right. And I found just as an adult that her confidence, and I won't spoil the story, but just the storyline and the positivity in the storyline was encouraging to me. So I'm sure parents reading the book to their children will see that strength as well. And it can really appeal, though you crafted it with a Black child in mind, it's something that would appeal to all children.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know?
Yeah. I think so too. You know, I want this to apply to all kids here in the States, different countries, no matter where they are, that their dreams are possible. I think that so I want people, of course, to read the story, but I do also want you to know what the story is about. So Fly is about 5-year-old Africa who sees that there is a double Dutch competition coming up at her library. So she decides to compete, but Africa does not know how to double Dutch. She's never double Dutch in her life. Her brother tries to discourage her. He doesn't think that she can do it because she has never double Dutch. So she relies on her community to help her figure out this kind of puzzle she has to solve. How do I double Dutch when I've never done that before? So her friends step forward and they teach her aspects of double Dutch that she can use in this upcoming competition. And she learns and she competes. So, and I think that it's inspirational, I hope, to children and yes, adults too, because the message that I wanted to convey was that our dreams are possible, even if we don't know how we're going to achieve. Sometimes we don't always have to know the end result. We just have to keep moving forward to get there. Mm-hmm. And that was really the message behind the story that I was wanting to get across. As a kid, there were several things that I wanted to do. I would try out for things like soccer and quit like tryouts because I felt that I wasn't good enough. And I wanted kids to know that, yes, you are good enough. You don't always have to know the answer. Nothing has to be perfect, but trying is what moves you forward in any of the things that you want to do.
Mm-hmm. And Brittany, what made you choose Double Dutch as the competition that she participated in?
Yeah, so several reasons, but one reason was that I didn't really at the time see a lot of books about double Dutch. So so I wrote this book. It was probably around 2017, the first draft, which was that poem, and I didn't see a lot of double Dutch books on the shelf. And then also, so as a kid, I always wanted to double Dutch, but I was too scared. Like I would, I was afraid. I was a very terrified child. I don't know why. Um, and I remember specifically being at like a picnic and seeing kids jump rope and double Dutch. And I remember wanting to jump into the ropes. And I think that like there's like a backward and forward motion that kids do when you want to jump into jump ropes or you want to jump into double Dutch ropes. And I remember doing that, but then like backing out because I was so afraid of the ropes hitting me.
Mm-hmm.
It's a realistic fear because it is kind of terrifying. And so that's another reason why I chose double Dutch. It was a fear that I had, and I didn't know how to double Dutch. And also, doing research on double Dutch, what I recognized was that kids, they are so supportive of each other. They are so encouraging of each other. And that's what I wanted to incorporate in the community aspect. I think double Dutch has so many themes of encouragement and having fun, but also not being afraid to try and fail. Because sometimes the ropes, you get tangled in them like Africa does in this story. Sometimes it doesn't always work out. But whenever I watch double Dutch or watch double Dutch videos, I'm always seeing kids trying and not being afraid. And just all of that encouragement that goes along with it was a motivating factor into having double Dutch a main part of this story.
Right. Now, I love the beautiful illustrations. We've had a few others join since we began our conversation. Could you hold the book up again?
Yeah, definitely.
Just so they can see it. I know the pictures behind you, just so they can see. And the as I said earlier, her beautiful words blend perfectly with these gorgeous illustrations, which are really a piece of art, as are the words inside. Now, during the process, were you able to see any of these illustrations, or was it a total surprise, or how did that work?
Yeah, so Fly is illustrated by Anna Kuna. Anna has also illustrated a story about Athea, Anita and the Dragonflies. Anna has these gorgeous illustrations that do look like art. So they look like they should be, and they could be, in a museum, on your wall, and they are always uplifting and encouraging depictions of children of color.
Mm-hmm.
So when I found out that Anna was chosen to illustrate Fly, I saw her samples and it brought tears to my eyes because I knew that this would be a story that I think as a picture book author, you kind of envision what your story will look like from the very beginning. You have these ideas of what the end result will be. And when I heard that Anna was chosen to illustrate, I knew that there was no way that I could predict like what her work would look like, the final product. It was more than anything that I could have imagined. It was, I'm not gonna cry, but I really wish that I had Africa as a kid. You know, seeing a girl my complexion with hair. When I was younger, my hair was relaxed, but I wanted my hair natural. Just living her life and embracing herself. I could not be happier with Anna's illustrations. Throughout the whole book, I can show you maybe one more, and maybe you've already seen. So here's another depiction that Anna has illustrated when Africa remembers her grandmother, because another component to this story is it has a multi-generational aspect to it. Africa's grandmother used to double dutch, which I think about. But she has just depicted these aspects of the story that I don't even think I could have written as an illustration note. Her grandmother, the birds that you see throughout the story, the trees, and how, to me, that means that Africa is connected and steady and unmoved, like not tempted by her brothers, when he's trying to discourage her. So yeah, there's so much to love about Anna's work, and I still like. There's the cover. I think that when the author sees their cover, there's no like with illustrations, you can't predict what it's going to look like, but when you see it, it just pulls everything together, right? And so that's what this cover has done too.
Yeah, because when I met you in Louisville, you showed me the cover and it was so beautiful. But when you read it and I saw all the pictures, I said, this is just gorgeous. And I can't wait until I'm able to buy my copy and get my own. I got to get it signed by you and give some to some little people out here. So it's just wonderful. Now, what's next for you? What other projects are you working on?
Yeah, so I have a few things in the work. I can briefly talk about them. I can't tell you too much about them, but I have a middle grade novel coming up. So also Fly releases in January of 2022. So Fly releases January 11th, 2022. And then I have a middle grade novel that has not yet been announced. It's in collaboration with a friend, actress, performer. That's coming up in April of 2022. It incorporates Harlem and Broadway and dance and tap and history. So I'm excited to, when I am able to announce that story, excited to be able to tell you more.
Now, you were just in New York. Was that part of that process, or?
A little bit. I wanted to go to New York to really feel the city. So I've been to New York before, but not as like a writer who's writing about Harlem. So I wanted to get in a different way. I wanted to visit some of the places that are in the story. So that was part of the reason, but also I just wanted to go to New York to have some me time and to get away.
I can understand that, yes.
And to focus on writing. Sometimes it helps when you're not at home all the time and you're someplace else.
Yes. Well, this is just wonderful. Now, can you share any tips for aspiring authors, or we have some authors here in attendance? What kind of tips can you give them for working on your craft and getting your career going? Because you just seem to be on fire. You're doing so many different things.
Yeah, so the first thing might sound like a cliche because I feel like we know this, but it's to read. I haven't been reading as much lately because sometimes it's hard to focus with everything that we're going through in this day and age. But I say to read as much as you can, even if it's in your genre or not. I feel that reading multiple genres helps you to hone in on what's working, what's not working, structure, dialogue. Read the books that are bestsellers, but read the books that aren't on the bestsellers list. Read the books that people aren't talking about, because sometimes there are many books that exist that don't get as much love as they deserve. Read everything. If you are, I also would say that attending conferences, so like highlights, for instance, the highlights that we were at, which was their summer conference, any type of writing related workshop will help you to hone in on the story that you're writing, right? Because you'll get feedback, you'll hear from other people, but also it helps you to build community. I think
Mm-hmm.
that you're on your writing journey, um, while you're reading, while you're doing your conferences, build up your community of support. Those people who will be with you when your manuscript doesn't sell, when the agent doesn't accept that manuscript, the people you
Mm-hmm.
can bounce ideas off of, the people you can vent to, those supporters of yours. Let me see what else. I think that there are so many writing tips. So, and
Right.
that I'm still trying to figure them out too. I think another is that um, I, as hard as it is to put your manuscript away for a certain period of time, I think that it's a must. When you write your draft, whether it's your first draft or second draft, put it in a shelf, tuck it away for a week, a month, the longer the better, so that when you come back to it, you're looking at it with fresh eyes. You can
Mm-hmm.
hear things and see things that you couldn't have seen or heard um, when you first wrote the story. That's a big one of mine. I like to put things away and then come back to it at a later date so that I can see it in a fresh and new way.
Yeah, that I love that too, because I found sometimes if I was struggling on something or couldn't figure out how to work something out, if I put it aside, then when I come back, it's so simple. But it
Yeah,
was something that, oh, I couldn't figure it out. But then I guess your mind may be working when you put it away.
yeah, exactly. And it reminds me of what Sona said at our highlights conference, how your brain kind of works when you're not actively looking at something. Sometimes when we put something away, a manuscript, and we go for a walk, or we take a trip, or we go and tend to our everyday life, in the back of our head, we're marinating that story so that when we come back to it, we have the solutions or a solution or new ideas that will help to bring that story back to life.
Right, exactly. Now, we've got, and you shared that your book is going to be actually available for purchase, Fly, in January 2022. Can people pre-order the book now?
Absolutely, yes. So
Okay.
people order, you can pre-order from Bookshop, where you can go through your local indie to get a copy of Fly. You can also pre-order from Barnes and Noble, Books a Million, and of course Amazon as well.
Okay, and I'll put links to that, or links to the interview when I have this on my page as well. If anybody's interested in pre-ordering, I know I'll be putting my pre-order in. Now we have many people on here. I want to open it up. If you guys have any questions for Brittany, if you want to ask any questions, just put them in the comments and we'll answer them. And so you have a master's in fine art degree, or is that true from Carnegie Mellon, you said?
So I have a master's in dramatic writing. I so my background is actually in theater. Even though I appear shy sometimes. I, I studied originally as an undergrad in London. Um, Studied abroad for 3.5 years, and I was studying theater and theater theory. Um, and while I was there, one was raving about a play that I wrote, and I kind of took that and ran with it. So when I came back to the States, I decided to go to grad school to get my MFA in dramatic writing. So I have an MFA in dramatic writing, but I would always say that you do not need a degree. You do not need an MFA to become an author. You just need to build your skills and your skill set up. You know, get that community, read those books. But at the time, I thought that that was the only way that you could become an author or a professional writer was to get an MFA and a degree.
Mm-hmm. Well, there's certainly a feather in your cap. Now we have a question here. Traveling Feet Books asked, what was your biggest challenge in writing this book, in writing Fly?
Yes, so my biggest challenge was waiting. And it sometimes with others still is. So publishing can be a very slow industry, as we know. Things take a long. In the beginning of writing Fly, before before Fly was picked up by an editor, it was just the weight of everything. It was the weight for hearing feedback from a critique partner. It was the weight from speaking with the editor at the conference and then them saying this is not enough. It was so many factors involved that sometimes the weight can weigh on you to points where you think that your book is not going to exist in the world except for as a piece of paper. And that can be very frustrating. It can be very discouraging. It can sometimes make you want to give up. And at the very beginning of Fly, there was a lot of that. Will this book ever exist? Will people see what I see in Africa? But then you also have moments where it's a very much, we want it, and then things kind of hurry up. So yeah, the work is a challenge, especially because I'm not really a patient person sometimes. So that
Well,
can be
how
one
do
of.
you overcome that? What do you do when you get those feelings?
Yeah, so you work on that next thing. You that next project on your computer, that next project on the horizon. So when your book is out on submission or you're querying an agent, I always say to work on your next story. You don't have to perfect it. You don't have to. It doesn't have to be. It just needs to be something to take your mind off of whatever process your original manuscript is going through. Even now, on submission for different projects, I have to occupy my mind by working on something else, because if I don't, then I'm just going to become consumed in what's going on with this other manuscript.
Right. Now, someone asked the reason you chose traditional over self-publishing.
Yeah, so I didn't really do a lot of research into self-publishing. I think that I don't know if I would be good at doing things, even though you have to do things like promote yourself now, like even through the traditional path. I just didn't know if I had the tools to do all of those steps myself, which is why self-publishing wasn't really on my radar. I really became invested in figuring out the traditional path and the steps that I would take to hopefully get my book traditionally published. But I really didn't invest time into the self-publishing aspect of creating a story.
But you've been very successful in what you're doing. You've got 2 books coming, so that is wonderful. And I'm so happy to meet you. And if you joined a little later, Brittany and I are actually from the same hometown. And when I knew she was from Louisville, Kentucky, where I'm from, I met with her when I visited home a couple of weeks ago, and we had coffee and went around the city. So that was so nice to see my little homegirl and meet her in person. And
Yeah, I
actually,
always.
Brittany, we have a similar background because I also studied in London and I was accepted to Carnegie Mellon, even though I didn't go there. So when I saw your profile, I'm like, her background is so similar in her interests.
Yeah, that was. I think that it's always crazy how like like people can have so many similarities. And I don't meet a lot of people who studied in London. And so it's always exciting to meet someone from my hometown, studied in London, have that Carnegie Mellon connection.
Yeah, I'm just so happy that I met you, and I'm so proud of you, and happy to see all your success. So we just wish you all the best. And you have any other comments to share? Anything else you want to tell people here?
Yeah, just thank you all for being here. I think that there was a comment, how do you find about workshops and conferences?
Oh, yeah.
And I found out about highlights at the time through word of mouth. A lot of other authors were talking about highlights, and I attended my first highlights conference in 2017, I believe. So around the time that I was writing Fly. But also just using the internet. Another conference that I love is Quayle, which is ran by Laura Pegram. And Quayle, the color of children's literature, has been instrumental in supporting me as a Black author, me as an author, supporting my colleagues of color who are really trying to maneuver through the publishing industry. And then just other conferences, like you can do a Google search to look for conferences that suit the writing that you are doing. I'm trying to think if there's another conference. Highlights, Quayle, top two.
Yeah. And I'll say with the highlights, this was my first time participating in that this weekend. And it was just virtual. And I can't imagine how great it will be to be in person. So I'm planning for that. I learned so something popped in. But in the 4 days that I went virtually, I learned so much. And I'm looking forward to planning an in-person visit. And Brittany, didn't you say you saw a bear there, though? I don't know about that. You said it got chased by a bear?
Well, I wasn't, but yeah, highlights virtually is wonderful. Highlights in person is wonderful too. You'll probably hear like the food is amazing, which is true. The community of people that you meet. I met at the time when I went, Alicia Williams was there. Alicia wrote.
I love her. Genesis Begins Again. Oh man. Yeah.
I can't think who else, but me and Alicia really connected while we were there. But one morning I went out for an early morning walk, and I didn't tell anyone. I had my headphones on because I like to listen to music when I go for a walk. But as I was on this trail, I took my headphones out because it felt like the right thing to do at the time. I walked maybe 2 more minutes, and up ahead on the left was a baby bear, and then a larger. I'm not going to say it was like the mother, but it was maybe a sibling. And I just felt this like intense wave of panic. So I turned around and I slowly walked back up the way I came. I didn't look behind me. I had thoughts of like, okay, what am I going to do if they run after me?
Oh my goodness.
They didn't. I went back. I told people, I don't know if a lot of other people have seen bears there, but they were relieved that I was okay, and I was too.
That's a story in itself. That could be your next book. So
Yeah.
Okay, great. Well, Brittany, thank you so much for joining us, answering these questions, sharing your journey. We wish you all the best and are looking forward to so many great things for you. And can you share again where they can find you?
Yeah, so you can find me on my website, www.brittanythurman.com. I'm on social media. I'm on Twitter at Janae Brittany. That's JaneeBrittany. And of course, I'm on Instagram at BrittJanae, BrittJanee.
Okay, great. Well, thank you and hope to see you again at another our meetings. And good luck, everybody. Check out Fly, check her out, follow her, and keep up and do those pre-orders. All right.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you for joining us.
All right. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.